Check. Check, please.
Or milestone. It's about the trick behind those milestones, the invisible battles, the first, the quiet persistence, and the loud resilience. Next we have Ms. Jennifer Larson, U.S. Consul General in Hyderabad. With nearly 20 years in diplomacy across South Asia, the Middle East and Europe, she's held top roles in the U.S. State Department. She's Next joining them is Ms. Vanita Datla, Vice Chairman and MD of Elco Limited, a pioneer in the instrumentation. But in case in the audience and towards the end, if you have any questions and if you have some time left, we can definitely ask the panel speakers. So I will start with Ms. Divya Devarajan, the IS officer in Government of Telangana, and
IPS, we move around a lot. And it never feels like you're in one place long enough. And I say that with certainly that's how I feel here in Hyderabad. Like the day that I have to leave will be a day that is a very, very, very sad one. And I think that's just been a very difficult part.
About this sacrificing careers, which I think is very bad in the long run, especially for a nation like ours. So the thing is, what worked for me may not work for you all, and try to find your own balance. And there are times where you can pull back from your professional space to sort of give more time for your personal obligations. But there will come a time when that sort of fades off, and then you give more time to your professional spaces. And as you grow in your professional spaces, you will become a part of
And now request Senior Answer and Shekar Reddy sir to please. Ms. Jennifer Larson, U.S. Consulate General, Hyderabad. Srimati Divya Devarajan, IAS CEO, sir. Dr. Vanita Datla, VC and MD of Elco Healthcare Services Limited. Last but not least, Ms. Navita Banka, MD Banka. My senior partner in Hyderabad, Nikila Constructions and Developers. That was a wonderful session.
This home where she trains children who grew up into adults and have become warriors themselves in this space. So Rakesh Dubdu is founder of Factly, renowned civics tech, fact-checking and public data initiative. And under his leadership, Factly has won many awards and grants, and he also serves as the president of the Misinformation Combat Alliance, an industry body dedicated to combating misinformation and promoting information integrity. And he is recognized as a transparency campaigner in India with over 2 decades of experience in the field, and his work has been acknowledged through various awards, including Distinguished Alumnus Award from NIT Warangal, his alma mater, where he's received an award as its youngest recipient. He is someone who trains journalists as well, and I have been a trainee in his sessions as well. And Dr. Purnima, of course, is a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, lifestyle expert, takes a passionate interest in social cause and effect and mental health advocacy, and she has founded Dhriti Wellness Clinic, focuses on women empowerment through all stages of life, child and adolescent issues, relationship and interpersonal management, and she has been honored with several awards as well. Has worked with LGBTQIA as well as with many non-profit and government and non-government organizations as well. Parimla ji is someone who is from your own fraternity in that sense, a police force, and someone who's graduated with such diverse fields of expertise she has, that I think that's what makes it very unique that she's here, because that's what we need now, that marriage of science. She's a biochemistry graduate and then went on to do forensic, the cyber forensics and information technology, and now working towards a PhD in this very field. So hopefully that's where the solutions will come as well for us. So while we do the introductions, just to set the stage, we are talking about all this at a time when all of us, many of us may have watched a series on Netflix called Adolescence, which of course is being raved about and maximum numbers of people have seen it. And if we are thinking that something that's happening in a Western world in a very different context, the number of cases that I see of teenage crimes and crimes against women, very often the same thread is running through. And even though we may not have very institutionalized words as of now, at least in our vocabulary, even in the film, in the series, where you get the idea that the glossary that these children are using is very different from the adults. The police officer investigating has no idea what they're talking about, and his son tells him that you are being an embarrassment, so I want to just educate you on what exactly we are talking about. He gives him incel and what is, what is that? Manosphere. And you talk about the blue pill and the red pill from the Matrix and so on. And I think why that was important is because that is the kind of a divide we have. We keep saying we don't know what our children are doing on the net. Very often we don't even know what our partners, friends are doing on the net as well. And that remains an area that is so mysterious, the worlds that we are straddling, and we really have no idea what is going on there. And therefore, now that we have not just work, education, entertainment, even medical therapy, shopping, you get your medical prescriptions and doctors online. So are we even surprised that all the crime, so to speak, economic offenses, as well as the crimes against women has moved online? No surprise there at all. And all of us are, I think, quite aware of the different kinds that this menace has taken, and women being that much more vulnerable. Just this morning, there was this video from Devanagari, which had one woman who is being ready to be beaten up. It looks like a video from an Islamic country where a woman is put there and she is being flogged by some 50 men who are all around for suspected adultery. Of course, she was committing the adultery alone because there is no man being beaten up in that entire video that you see. But what I'm saying is the real world and the cyber world are actually very similar, and they are transgressing into each other. And this is something that has very unique characteristics, all of which we will discuss, about the anonymity, about the permanence of what is happening, and because of which it gets that much more pervasive. I'm going to start with you, Sunita. 10 years ago, you went to the Supreme Court saying all these online pornographic material is here, and you got us some very important directions from the Apex Court. What is the situation now? I know that now, from then to now, the world of the digital world has changed dramatically. Social media and many of those platforms which at least half the people in this room, certainly me, are not familiar with platforms in which all this is happening, and we remain actually unaware of it and we don't know where to go. Tell me the extent of what we are seeing, the kind of a magnitude of what is staring at us in the face, because we are going to limit this discussion to cyber world, digital world.
10 years ago, before that, first of all, thank you, CP sir, for such a wonderful platform, for creating an enabling environment for even such uncomfortable discussions to happen. Much of gratitude to you. It takes a lot of guts to have this kind of a conversation on a panel. Congratulations to Hyderabad City Security Council. I sit here with a lot of anger. I sit here with a lot of anguish. 10 years back, when I went to the Supreme Court with 9 videos of young women being raped and recorded, that led to the cybercrime portal being established, the intermediary guidelines to come in, some of the technological firms taking some measures to take. Today in 2025, 10 years later, situation has worsened beyond imagination. Cyberspace has become one of the greatest enablers for crime against women and children. Lavanya ma'am had spoken about CSAM, but you need to understand the quantum we are talking about. I did a small decoy operation on an application called as Telegram. And the entire operation was just about 3 hours altogether. I spent 532 rupees. And each of my transaction was 30 rupees, 40 rupees, 45 rupees. That's all. For 532 rupees, I was able to purchase 9,000 videos of little children. The youngest of that video was a 6 months baby being sexually assaulted in perhaps their own house, whatever. Today, I don't think there's any kind of a safe space that we can talk about. We're also seeing a whole lot of things which is like so celebrated, like online games. Gaming addiction becoming the reason for young children as young as 6 and 7-year-olds to generate their own sexually abusive material. 30% of what you see as sexually abusive material online, 30% of it is self-generated by children. So who is that who's guiding a child to say, okay, hold the mobile phone between your legs and masturbate? Who's telling this child? And how is that being consumed is something that we need to. I work on the issue of sex trafficking, Uma, and we see every platform digitally today, social media, matrimonial sites, dating sites, classifieds like Locanto, everything being used by predators to trap young girls for sex trafficking and sexual exploitation. So there's not even one realm of the digital space that is actually safe for women and children. And very, very unfortunately, the government does not understand the intensity with which this is penetrating. And I don't know when we will wake up when everything is over. I don't know, you know. The technological firms.
Over, I guess. I mean, I'm saying there's no such thing like everything over. You spoke about trafficking, and earlier you had to be physically taking people to another place to do the sexual abuse.
You don't need to do anything now. You don't need to do anything now. I know I have millions of cases that I can quote off. I'm like exaggerating when I say millions. Enough cases to prove that a girl can be trafficked right from Bangladesh to Hyderabad digitally, happily, you know. There's no trafficker who is taking her across the border, bringing her. Everything through Messenger, through WhatsApp, through Telegram kind of thing. She is, you know, made to smuggle herself out to this country and then brought here, then sextorted. So the person face is becoming more and more anonymous.
Yeah.
And that, I think, ma'am will be speaking more on that, on how the predators have today, thanks to the digital technology that allows you to be anonymous. You can create a fake profile, you can, you know, communicate completely through a fake persona, you know. You have encryptions, you have disappearing messages. All of this enables predators much more than the good things that's happening. And that is why I'm a very, you know, I'm very angry person today, because sometimes I'm feeling people like me raise a flag so that, you know, things can be prevented. And 10 years later, I'm saying, oh my God, the problem is, you know, increased 100-fold. And today I'm standing here like in a helpless state. I don't know where to hit what.
You're saying you're feeling helpless, I mean angry. I feel very helpless and frustrated in this position. Before I come to Parimala ji, I'm going to ask Rakesh, is this built into what technology is like? I mean, like she said, encryption was meant to be something that protected you, gave you some kind of insurance against being exploited in that space. And yet is technology actually helping women get doubly discriminated and doubly violated? And is there no escape from that?
Yeah, thanks, Uma. Thanks, Hyderabad Police, for holding this event. I think the structural issues that we see offline in our society, they reflect online as well. They are no different. In fact, we assume that to an extent online democratizes, you know, and so that vulnerable sections, including women, can have safer spaces. But at least in my experience of working on data and misinformation, it is generally not the case. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So a couple of years ago, we had this very innocuous piece of content going viral, innocuous, you know, by the outcome. which said UN ranks India as the the top third country where wives beat husbands. So UN declared it. So obviously, there is UN, there is trustworthiness. So there must be some data supporting this. So this went really viral. Of course, there is no such data. UN never declared it. Some obscure Middle Eastern portal wrote about it, and then some mainstream media picked it up. Now, if it was the opposite, I'm sure it wouldn't have gone viral. In the sense, India is third or fourth, whatever, where husbands beat wives, it wouldn't have gone viral. So a lot of what we are seeing is structural, and that is reflected online. Same thing with what we see as employment scams today. So if you go onto YouTube today and type pencil pack jobs, now there is a huge racket running. The company knows about it. Everybody knows about it. So there is this racket running where most of the victims are women, where they are told that because most of you are housewives, so you need not sacrifice your familial duties. So you can stay at home, pay this registration fee. We'll send you pencils to pack. You can earn 30,000, 40,000. So it's an economic scam. So what we are seeing is the online hasn't reduced any of this. In fact, in some sense, I would say it has worsened because the distribution is now unparalleled. So, there's no way one can stop distribution of these things because there are platforms that in the radar, there are platforms off the radar. And there's no way you can, and we don't even know how people are consuming with, so much of decentralized distribution. So it's not just in the case of these two, for instance, whenever people talk about politics, political leaders criticize each other, it's eventually the daughters of those people who become victims of misinformation. It's never sons. So daughter, the daughter of certain leader is dressed a certain way, a daughter of a certain leader got a job a certain way. So it's always that gender aspect, I think, where we see as a structural issue in the offline society is coming into online. So technology, unfortunately, hasn't, of course, it has given us tools. So like Sunita ji was saying about a cybercrime portal where at least anonymously you can go and make a complaint. At least that is there, but I haven't seen that technology has made it any better. In some cases, it has made it worse.
No, are we also not exerting enough pressure on the intermediaries to take responsibility, on these players in this area to take enough responsibility? Parmalaji, Sunita spoke about the scope of the problem and he spoke about the technology. This also is a valiant effort on the part of the police, knowing fully well that this is a huge issue, which perhaps the resources that even the police has would find it very challenging to tackle because it is everywhere, all pervasive, and obviously the police force is not blessed with that kind of resources, technology or means. And yet, what would you see as the scale we all know about, the kind of problem we know about, but what do you see as how the police is to wake up to this entire issue? Because when she's talking about what happened between the last 10 years to now, you have come up with portals and others. What are your challenges when you as the police are trying to tackle cyber violence against women?
Yeah, Uma, as you said, the volume of crime is very large and the police works with a constraint. Of course, we are trained to work within the constraints of budget or the resources, whatever it is. But most of the time, we need to accept, and of course, everyone would accept that the police tries to do the best in trying to combat crime, whatever it is. Though we know cybercrime is very new, even to the police, to understand the way the cyber criminal goes by leaps and bounds, and with that speed, they try to commit the crime. It is, of course, a challenge for the police officers to understand that because the police are not exactly trained in technology. Now we are trying to pick up that, understand what the consequences are and how we need to do and what the trends of crime, cybercrime are and how fast they're changing. And then we are trying to pick up, educate ourselves and also through capacity building, through trainings and implementing different tools which are available. We are trying to empower ourselves and then do the investigation of crime. So here, unlike in the conventional crime, where we concentrate more on prevention of crime and then detection, Here, cybercrime happens more quickly, and there is less scope for prevention of crime, because every individual is vulnerable here. When you see a simple way of browsing a site or just a click on a link can lead into a nowhere or into a most devastating and damaging crime of an individual, which the police officer normally or any investigator is not aware of. Even the individual who is doing it is not aware unless he gets into the mess. Then only it's reported. So most of the cybercrime investigation is reactive. But now the police, we are trying to do the cyber patrolling, adopt ways where we can also develop some apps which can become the resource apps for the women or for any group of individuals to be aware, not to enter into such type of crimes. So this is how, I mean, predictive, we need to move to predictive policing. But as of now, we are doing reactive policing only because, again, I told you, the lack of awareness, the lack of the technology, the tools available to us, and of course, now the government also, and also the senior officers and everybody are aware of what is happening, and they're trying to empower each and every individual. And if you see in Hyderabad City Police, which I can proudly tell about my commissioner, sir, C.V. Anand, sir, who has taken an initiative to curb the cybercrime. He has set up the zonal cybercrime cells, wherein each and every individual, right from the rank of a constable to the senior-most officer, is trained, is enabled to tackle the cybercrime. Apart from creating the awareness to the individuals, individuals in the sense to the police officers, right from the lowest rank to the senior most. We are also trying to educate the individuals not to get into, the citizens not to get into such crimes, so that it is much more easier and better for the law enforcement agency to do the investigation and prevent the crime.
Very, very obviously, you're bringing in all the stakeholders here and having this discussion for that very reason, that you do understand that police alone cannot really tackle this. But one area that really goes neglected, not spoken about, is the kind of psychological impact that this kind of a crime has, because it's not visible to anyone, very often hidden, and there's even the most so-called educated, liberated women find it very difficult to come out and say, I was a victim of this, because people will say, isne to kuch to kiya hoga. She is trying to have an affair, or she spoke to someone, or she did something because of which this happened. And share with us the extent of this problem. What are the kind of issues that are coming up? We, in a very generic sense, we say stress, anxiety, depression. We keep saying all these things. But do you see the manifestation of cyber violence coming out in the kind of impact that women are reporting, the few who may manage to come to you, children, adults?
Thank you for that question, and thank you for having me here. So we're talking about cybercrime, and we're talking about criminals, we're talking about the police, we're talking about the law. What about the consensual aspect of this? There is something called a consensual aspect, wherein people walk into these sites fully knowing that they would want a partner, there will be sexting involved, there will be explicit sexual content that is shared back and forth. There is also a certain level of mind bend here. What starts off as a friendship, then it becomes probably a little more explicit, and then becomes extremely explicit. And after that, there are some people who allow themselves, I will say allow, in a moment of vulnerable weakness, to allow that the predator, whoever he is, to talk them into hitting themselves, harming themselves, attempting suicide, making them feel guilty for whatever they did, blackmailing. Then you have revenge porn. So there's so much that happens which is consensual, which is in the age of consent.
I will just stop you there once to say that, to some extent, innocently, in good faith, very often there could be friendships which are outside of what are traditionally considered acceptable. I'm saying the problem comes when it crosses that line, and it is exploitation, and it is criminal. Sunita, you wanted to interject there, I know.
I think I just want to say that we need to differentiate between grooming and consenting. There's a way that predators groom a victim, and the victim might feel that she is consensually entering it, but it's a planned conspiracy by the predator. These are the, the pitches they make so that the emotional vulnerability of a person can be easily tapped.
I think Dr. Purnima is trying to say that the lines slightly get blurred sometimes.
Yes, the lines are extremely blurry these days. Wherein, see, at one point, you see, when I was young, drinking was considered a huge crime. If you're caught with a glass in your hand, oh, you're a terrible drunkard. The same way, you see, as time passes, as we have, grown into society, everything gets a certain level of consent. Now, so social drinking is fine, smoking is fine. Now, there are people who feel, parents who feel that weed is okay, and abusing cannabis is just fine, it's nothing more than that, vaping is fine. So, at some point, I think, are we moving towards becoming more sexually permissive? Now, there's another psychological issue here. Need for consent, need for validation is so high in the, in the society these days, where they feel like it's only work, I don't have work-life balance, nobody appreciates me. And then here's somebody who says you're the most beautiful, person in the world. And, the predatorship starts. And, you're groomed into this relationship. Consensually, you walk into it, and then at some point, you find it difficult to make that U-turn and come out. Apart from this, the psychological issues, you mentioned stress, anxiety, and depression. But I'm talking something more serious, self-harm. I'm talking about suicidal attempts. I'm talking about body image issues, eating disorders, which are far more serious and far more actually scary. There was this pop star who took off her makeup on Instagram. She was trolled to the extent that she started self-harming. There was this young girl who was told that she's fat, ugly, and deserves to die. And she was 8 years old, and this happened in UK. And she actually killed herself, and she live streamed her death. So you see, the level of predatorship is not only about sex, it's all about other things like, shaming a person's body, subjugation, control, making, you feel great for a moment, and then the final power that the other person has on you. So there's so many things in play here.
I'm just curious to know this. Do you get patients who are the victims of something like this? And have you also seen, there are a lot of, it need not be only young males, I'm saying. Are you seeing those people also who the family recognizes as becoming dysfunctional and therefore being brought here?
Yes, we have cyber addicts who come to us, people who not only are victimized by this, both sexually as well as for money and other things.
Sexual addiction.
Yes, and also people who are on the other side of the spectrum, the people who actually groom these people and who get into these relationships. And they say it was consensual because everybody's old enough to consent. People are in their 30s and 40s also sometimes. And at the moment the framework of law does not include these people because it's consent, isn't it? So the thing is, it becomes a very difficult thing, to draw that line between what is right and what seems right. Like, for example, Sunita was mentioning games. There is this game called Sin City, and there's certain other games also, wherein you have to conduct yourself in an unlawful manner to get points and energy points. So there is a game which encourages prostitution, which encourages self-harm, which encourages harming others, ambushing others, and you get those energy points. So the difference between what is right and what is wrong is completely blurry. So that's the reason why it's so easy to step onto that side and say, what have I done wrong? Nothing. I mean, who asked that person to talk to me? I mean, I didn't say anything. I thought she was beautiful, but then she turned out to be something else. It's like that. So you see, there's a difference in place. The law does not, the tentacles of the law doesn't really reach, neither, can the police reach there, because it's all fair, square, and open.
But there's a lot of thing that is straight away toxic and all of us can see it. There could be certain relationships where you talk about this gray area.
Yeah.
The other side of the spectrum, of course, you have, one of the, there's something called Network of Women in Media, and there the article had pointed this out about how people are talking about, there used to be a singer in my time called Rageshwari, and she spoke about how no one wants to cook, and now women don't want to cook because they are not getting appreciated, and therefore the men should start appreciating the women so that they cook. And there is another example of this Malayalam actress who says she starts her day by touching her husband's feet. So what happens is these very well-made videos of women who are the aspirational #tradwife, which is also a thing that is actually perpetuating the gender stereotypes. that is another end of the spectrum that makes you aspirational, that you have to do this and you have to do that as well to be considered the ideal wife, ideal mother, ideal daughter-in-law, and so on and so forth, which is also something that I think many people have called out as toxic. Sunita, I'm coming back to you. On this issue, Rakesh spoke about, yes, we have technology and this is happening. I know that you've been wanting to take on those very people who are making money out of this. It's not just, those people who are, you said, selling for 40 rupees, 50 rupees. The platforms on which they are there, the gateways, what has your battle there been like? What have your experiences there been like? Because that is also one of the very important, stakeholders here, and on who we actually should place a lot of responsibility.
Uma, before I answer that question, I want to supplement what Purnima said. I think one of the biggest impact on a victim of digital crime, the mental health impact, is the permanence of the digital content. And it has some really, really deep manifestations that happen. We have seen young children as young as 13 and 14 who have been sexually exploited online, whose content is out there, not able to even come out of the room, thinking that every single person on the road must have seen my video. Because this content is permanent. And that's why what Purnima says is so important to, that step this side can create something which is, permanent. And the closure of trauma is something becomes very difficult. And also I want to flag at this point that very few mental health professionals in this country are trained to deal with digital addiction. Online gaming is an addiction. Instagram reeling is an addiction. These are things that nobody knows how to deal with. It's not like other forms of addiction. Coming back to your question on tech firms and their accountability, I'm very, very frustrated from 2015 onwards, where tech firms have fought us tooth and nail to take accountability of their platforms, to make better safeguarding protocols for women and children. And it's very sad, in spite of the fact that, say, an activist like me or somebody else has actually filed a case against a tech firm saying, okay, Telegram did this or Paytm did this. The case is in a back burner for more than a year and a half now. So when when something is not taken as a priority by the law enforcers, because understanding...
I was just going to ask, why should it be your battle? You are someone who's brought it forth.
Absolutely. Safety is a collective action. If a citizen like me has taken the initiative of saying, okay, I will, get you the evidence, and I'm getting you first set of evidence against why this platform has enabled it. If you look at platform like Telegram, you can buy CSAM there, you can buy women there, you can buy organs there, you can buy infant babies there, explicit. There's nothing, not even a pop-up coming saying that child sexually abusive material should not be bought. Meaning, there's nothing called as a safeguarding platform. In fact, you will be, given all the options, like 35,000 people contacting you and saying, okay, we have this. So there is something about the technology which is enabling that. And tech firms need to take something. Unfortunately, in India, we don't really have a good example of women and children's crime against women and children taken up by technological firms, like, say, the United States has. If you look at the classic case of Backpage.com, which is like our Locanto and, a classified, which was found to be enabling child sexual exploitation, child sex trafficking, sexual exploitation of women and children. Not only they were penalized, they were made to pay $215 million. Now that is the kind of accountability that is required. But that's when the technological firms, we need to say, like Philippines has banned Skype. Why have they banned Skype? Because Skype was used for live streaming of child sexually abusive material and child sexual exploitation, using Skype as a live streaming mechanism. They've banned it there. So, taking that kind of accountability, not only by the enforcement, but also by the government, to say that this, if you don't bring in the safeguarding protocols. You don't need to be, implementing, in our jurisdiction or in our country, you don't have space for. I think also, Uma, we need to look at several countries, 79 countries, I would say, have actually put in restriction in usage of digital devices in schools and colleges and things like that. Now, these are some of the things that we need to look at. How do we make technological firms, think? Because technological firms are demand and supply market. These are basically an economic market. They don't come with, philanthropy or social concern, but they can be made to do several things, if we take the right kind of positioning. Today, 3 cases related to CSAM, related to sexual exploitation of women and organ trade is just lying there. Nothing has happened after 1.5 years since the case has been registered. Now, what does it mean? It means the tech firms feel more confident about just going on with their businesses. The predators feel more confident that nobody is going to touch them. And that is why accountability by all stakeholders, I think, is the key factor.
Technology, tech firms not being made accountable, that's not just an Indian issue. Obviously, globally, this is a challenge that we are finding. Like the way, earlier we had about environment pollution. People got away with whatever they were doing till that accountability was established. Don't you see that as the most important place where this can be actually curbed? Other than, of course, we keep talking about digital literacy and people being aware and policing and regulating.
No, it is, Uma. So technology firms are definitely a very important part of this puzzle, and maybe, if not the most important. But the challenge is, for instance, the most well-known platforms where they have a lot of Indian users, they have some explicit policies around CSAM and something that is very black and white. So you will see, about NCI, a lot of these things are now taken care of, and they're pretty strict about it. Unlike, let's say, political speech or other speeches where, there is room for, difference of opinion. Here, there is no difference of opinion. In fact, every tech firm says that. What seems to be happening is there is springing up of new platforms. So on the most well-known platforms, like Purnima was saying, it is grooming that happens. So the threat does not happen there. So a lot of them also happen offline. So we get cases where, we heard of cases where things happen offline as well. So the most well-known platforms are only used for the initial introduction. So because if you do these explicit acts or, perpetuate these crimes, they have, the algorithms are pretty good now. The technology is pretty good. So it's not a difficult thing for them to catch all this.
So
I think
algorithms, we all understand in one sense that they will promote sensational content because they promote engagement.
Yeah.
Can't the algorithm be rigged in such a way that it is able to catch something like that?
Which is why I'm saying CSAM, etc., they're very well trained. I don't think there's no platform, at least the big platforms, that they say we don't have the technology to. That is there. The challenge is not that. The challenge is what is prompting that to happen. The challenge is algorithms. So, unlike Europe, where with the Digital Services Act, and they're asking algorithms to be audited to see what. See, nobody's asking tech firms to change their algorithms, but the challenge is to say, what is your algorithm about? What is it promoting? Can I, for example, if I as a user, do I have the ability to change what I want to see? So these are certain freedoms, etc., that have to eventually come in, because I believe there will be a saturation of this. You can't have a platform coming in every day. So there is TikTok, for instance. It's banned in India, of course, but the US is grappling with it. So there will come a day where we'll start the reverse cycle, the detox. Now everybody wants 10-day detox, 5-day detox. What is to be fought for is, of course, whatever technology they have, they should quickly enforce it. Secondly, algorithmic accountability is the thing. Unless that happens, if not in this platform or this way, we'll see it in some other way, manifesting in some other way, because the generational shift that we are seeing is not going to stop. So today, I can't have a conversation with my niece and nephew because they talk something which I rarely understand. I'll have to pick up ChatGPT or something to understand the lingo. So this is not going to stop. We are fighting a losing battle there. I think the battle is to tell these platforms, push them either through legislation or collective action to say that algorithms are the key. If we can stop it there, if we can give the baton back to the user, I think things will change.
Imlaji, I was looking at I4C when, it has these recommendations, do's and don'ts, which is a very good document in that sense. But it doesn't have any category of cyber violence against women.
Yeah, of course. We need to understand the violence against women is tech-facilitated violence and then tech-based violence. Tech-based violence is mostly domestic violence, putting up the cameras and surfing the WhatsApp chat or whatever it is from the messenger, and then instigate violence against the woman. That is one type which is very commonly seen. And then the tech-based, you're vulnerable in the open internet where you get into different forms of cyberbullying or cyber stalking and then doxing, whatever it is like phishing and everything. So what not all. So we need to understand that fine line of difference between the tech-facilitated and tech-based violence against the women. So I foresee, yes, definitely is looking into it because 1930 portal is not exclusively for controlling of economic offenses, which are in the cyberspace, but also the violence in the cyberspace. But again, that because of the gender sensitivity or whatever it is, the crime which is getting reported is low because of the social stigma, the lack of awareness, and even before they realize it's too late. That is how even the crime against women, which Sunita is talking about or whatever it is, the percentage which that is getting reported is slightly lower. Because if you see,
5 minutes is only left, so very
yes.
quickly I'm going to go through what you think are your recommendations to make, at least in our city, or
yes.
it could be, it obviously has no geographical boundaries, but your recommendation, very, very quickly we need to go
very
through
quickly
this.
to tell you is like, of course we have the big data of the conventional crime which has happened against the crime against women. That can be taken, and as Rakesh was saying, like the technology platforms have to develop the right algorithms based on the, you need to use ML, machine learning, and also NLP to develop the right algorithms to find out where the alert comes, or where and which type of the words or the data which we need to analyze to curb that crime has to be worked out. And that alone will not be done by the police themselves or by the technology companies themselves.
Yeah.
Both put together, both minds have to work to develop that right algorithm to control the cyber crime in the cyberspace against the women.
I think we should bear down hard on people, like in the foreign countries, on people who are child sexual, porn, which is child porn, and I think we should really bear down hard on these things. And the other thing is the sexual sanction that society seems to be giving everybody on these dating sites and on these other apps. I think there should be some vigilance and some thought on that. And as far as parents are concerned, because I deal with adolescents and young adults, I think we really need to work on building our children's self-esteem. You tell a child she's dark, she's fat, she's ugly, she's bound to pick on somebody on the net who's not going to say these things, and even if it's grooming her, he's just going to say really nice things to her. So I think we need to work with parents, we need to work at the school level, and definitely supervised time on the net. This is something which I think we haven't said enough of. No matter how much we say it, on a private level in my clinic, it doesn't seem to work, but more on a public fora, like where, we're talking in offices and all that, where there has to be supervised and a lot of transparency when you're on the, when you're online. A fair amount of online transparency is definitely needed.
3 recommendations, I would say. One is the need of the hour, I feel, is an Online Safety Act. 67B of IT Act or 60C of E of IT Act is not enough to bring the technological firms to an accountable platform. The Online Safety Act should look at victim protection to every stakeholder who is accountable for this, and it's a need of the hour because we can't keep pointing out fingers at our law enforcers for not doing things, and there's not a comprehensive law to deal with this situation. And the situation,
some countries have begun to do it now.
Yeah, and situation is alarming enough for us to now look at an Online Safety Act. The second thing that I would very, very strongly recommend is an integrated victim protection units, which is accessible for anybody, men, women, children, to get the care and protection that is required for their mental health interventions. Because, see, the digital crimes is so pervasive and so invasive that the trauma is very deep, and there's hardly any trained professionals in the country who are able to deal with digital addiction and digital exploitation. The third thing I would very strongly propose is online safety to become part of the curriculum, not only for schools, but also in teaching colleges, you know, for teachers.
Maybe also officers.
And this should be a subject which has to be dealt with the parents also. So PTAs to be, you know, taking up digital safety and online safety, because very often the child is far ahead than the parent in digital understanding. And so how will this parent even guide this child? Child is the one who's telling them this is how the WhatsApp has to be used, or this is how the camera has to be done. So we are dealing with a very generational crisis that needs to be addressed through thing, and that has to be reviewed every 6 months, because online is a very fast moving space. And the crime that I saw 10 years back is not what the crime I see today. So every day it's changing, to understand that and make whatever our intervention more relevant.
Thank you. Rakesh, you get the last one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Sunita ji. I think the NEP and all the other educational reforms is a very good opportunity in that sense. So we don't have to go by conventional teaching and conventional. A lot of youngsters learn by example. I mean, they see somebody becoming a victim, then they suddenly, okay, fine, you know, there's something wrong about this. It's unfortunate, but you know, so example-based learning, and like Sunita ji rightly said, law cannot keep pace with technology. Society and, you know, elder people cannot keep pace with technology. So the only way it happen is the institutional spaces. So, you know, which is schools, colleges, and I'm not saying the faculty need to be trained, but, you know, there are specialized institutions who do research. They have to be involved. And secondly, I think this whole notion about online influence, that you have 10K followers and it doesn't mean anything, and it is ephemeral. So suddenly, you know, there's an algorithmic change and somebody blocks you, it's done. I mean, you're back to zero. So somewhere that needs to be drilled into young minds, that, you know, whether you have 1 lakh followers, 2 lakh followers, it doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, this is just online. Nobody will come to you if you're in times of need. So unless that happens, people will keep looking for validation and look at those 10K followers as something that they have built. So I think these two would be my recommendation.
Thank you so much, all of you. I do understand that while all of them are saying this, we in the media have the responsibility to make it seem like this is something so critical that we need to flag it again and again and again. And I know that an NEP is probably not equipped to do it. Schools are not equipped to do it. All of them are very judgmental about children, judgmental about what happens in that space, and therefore they are really not the right people to do it. But I realize that this side of the panel has much more of a responsibility in terms of flagging this issue. And very obviously, you brought in all the stakeholders, and having these discussions is perhaps the starting point. Thank you so much. We do hope we are able to give some recommendations at least that makes our space, our cyberspace a little more safe than what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to the moderator and all the panelists on the dais. That was a very insightful and informative panel. I request you all to stay back on the dais. I now request the Secretary General of Hyderabad City Security Council, Shri C, Shekar Reddy Garu, and also Shri C Anand Garu, the Chairman of Hyderabad City Security. When there's the culture of kidfluencers happening, online child safety has become a huge issue. We as parents need to actually take initiative and see that our kids are not going online, because we cannot prevent the crimes from happening. We can only prevent the content going online and our kids being safe. We are responsible for our own digital safety, and we are responsible for our own child safety. Thank you very much to all the panelists. And Ms. Uma Sudhi, ma'am, you have done a great job asking all the questions. Of course, I need not, it's like showing a torchlight to the sun by complimenting you. It's a wonderful thing, ma'am. Thank you very much. I also request Dr. Lavanya. You have spoken excellently about CSAM. Very, very, very sensitive topic and very hard to deal with topic, for speaking about this issue on the dais and creating an awareness.